This is a daughter podcast where dads come to talk, think, and thrive with your hosts, Oscar and Blandon. Our mission is to cultivate a community of strong, mindful, and present fathers.
We want to curate honest conversations with all men, but especially those who have the honor of raising daughters.
Hey everyone, Oscar here at the Daughter Podcast with Blandon on the other side. How's it going, brother?
Hey, it's going good, man. I'm back in the land of the living. So I was very sick. I was extremely sick. My daughter got sick on Father's Day. And as I recall, supposedly a good friend of mine was telling me, hey, if you're fortunate enough, you'll get it on your birthday. And sure enough, because you said that, I got sick on my birthday. And I've been sick ever since.
I do feel bad about that, I'm not going to lie. Because I wasn't wishing it on you. I just was saying that historically, the days that are for you are not for you. They're for your girls. That's why I said if you're lucky, you'll also have it on your birthday. And so it became. Now, to be fair, you weren't sick on your birthday. Your daughter was still sick on your birthday.
Correct.
And then she decided to leave it with you the remainder of the week.
That is correct. That is correct.
All right,
but
well,
I am 95% better today. So
95%. You just need 1% every day, and then you get to 100. You'll be all right.
Yeah, sure.
I'm gonna go into the details of how you're sick, but in the summer, no, man. Like I've had that. And the moment you walk outside with that heat, no.
Well, I wasn't walking anywhere. I was laying in the fetal position in my bed in the coolness. But yeah, the summer heat is nowhere to be the sick I was. Yeah.
That's right. That's right. Speaking of summer activities going on. What do your kids got going on in summer activities?
Yeah, so this summer we are doing swim, of course. For my little one, my oldest one has already been in swim, but we'll probably re-up the swim. And we have a myriad of play dates and adventures. They're going to be with me for a solid week while my wife goes on a retreat. So that'll be great for her and it'll be great for us because we'll get to really connect. And I will be a super dad because I am the soft spot in the household. So I typically don't say no to a lot, only when it's like egregious asking, like when they're just like overly asking for something. And I'm like, okay, no, like you need to stop. Yeah. But yeah, so we're dealing with the summer activities. What about you? What are you guys doing?
We have summer activities. We got gymnastics here. We got dance there. We have pools. Now, I don't have a pool, but there's pools all over the place. So that's been a contentious area. That kind of brings us to our conversation today. As fathers see our daughters wear, what we perceive them wearing and what we think other men perceive them wearing. I think, at least in my view, that's what I'm protecting them from. And then it's so dependent on the stages and ages, right? Because it's so much easier to deal with some of the stuff at the earlier stages. And then it gets a little bit harder as I'm stepping into this minefield of, I think they call it early adolescence, tweening. I don't know how to call it. I know that it's starting. And the peace treaties are hard to come by. Oh. Yeah, so I figured we could talk about some of that stuff. And you've got a great story that you're going to share with us about that because it brings us really into this field that I think every father of daughters has to get to at some point.
Yeah. No, really it does. Yeah, like you were talking about, you go to the stores now, and I am extremely surprised at the swimsuit options that they have for little girls. Like, there's no difference between what a woman would wear and what they have in 3, 4, and 5T. So I'm amazed by that. When we look for bathing suits, we're looking for one pieces. And it is a lot of these things are extremely revealing for me as a dad. But apparently it is commonplace right now, which is very surprising. I guess it shouldn't be, but it still is. And which kind of leads me into the story. So about a couple of weeks ago, I had a good buddy and he texted me and he was like, hey, bro, do you think this is appropriate? And so he sent me a pic of his daughter, and I have permission to share the story. I'm not sharing his name or his daughter, but I have permission to share the story. And so he sent me a picture of his daughter, and she was in a crop top. Now, I had to ask him again how old his daughter was. He gave the age, and I was like, and she's also a tween. And I was like, no, that is not appropriate. And he was like, yes, that's what I was telling her mother. But her mother is allowing her to wear this. Now, to be fair, they have a shared custody. So him and his daughter's mother are not married, and they share that parental responsibility of her. But it still, for a girl dad, is, yeah, I still need to weigh in on how she is presenting herself to the world.
Right.
And in a way that honors her, that doesn't shame her for her body. And from my view, her body was created by God. It is God's creation. There's nothing to be ashamed of from her body. But that's not all that she's presenting, right? There needs to be a way that we tell our girls that, hey, you're beautiful, but you don't have to reveal everything to the world. And so it's a very interesting dynamic when they get in that tween age. I'm not there, of course, because like I've time capsule my children. They're forever small right now for me. And we're in this age of they still play dress up. They're still in princess dresses and different costumes. So we're not there yet, but I guess we are approaching there fast.
Yeah, it's weird, man, because I do have a tween. I have a 12-year-old, and then I also have an 8-year-old, which is like that middle ground because she looks up to her older sister so much.
Yeah.
So there's an influence opportunity there that as a 12, 13, 16-year-old, you don't realize how much of influence you have on your siblings. Your parents can tell you all day, but you don't really see that until you grow into learning that, right? So I have the tween, I have the 8-year-old who looks up to her sister, but still very malleable with us. And then I have my 3-year-old, and she's just a battle all around. Or she's just 3. And it's not about a 2-piece or a single piece. It's just about fighting about clothes. Like, it's just, and I'm almost, my wife and I were talking, like, we almost prefer that at this point. Like, you know what? You want to fight about this? Let's just fight about this. It's fine. Because it's in a time capsule, it's such an easy fight compared to what we're stepping into now. And it's interesting as you're talking because some of us fathers, I think a lot of fathers that I know, also time capsule, right? So you've got your children, like you, Brandon, have your girls.
Yeah.
You know that they're a certain age and you know what they're doing. They're playing dress up. They're still doing the little girl thing. And then you walk into the store and you look around and you're like, oh, that's got to be for adults. There's no way that's for my kid because my kid is not. We're not there yet.
Yeah.
But as you mentioned, you walk over and this is my kid's size.
Right.
8 and under, again, that's just my world right now. 8 and under feel doable.
Yeah.
In that manner. I can tell my 8-year-old, hey, we're not wearing that today. Okay. Right? Because I say we can wear this or this, but not that. The 12-year-old is a little bit different because for 2 main reasons. One, facing social media. When I was 12, there was no social media. There was nothing that to consistently bombard me with what I should be wearing, what the celebrities are wearing, what the popular people were. Like, I didn't have any of that. I think you can attest to this, right? During our tween and teen years, you're basing it off of everything. It's based off of real world in front of you things, right? So sure, the popular kid is wearing XYZ, but whatever. It's not constantly being bombarded. You leave school, you leave that environment, and then you're back to where you're at. Now my daughter doesn't have social media. Her friends have social media, which is where I assume she gets a lot of this information from. And I don't know to what extent they have or what they do. But I wasn't a girl, so I don't know what that feels like at that stage. I have an idea of what I felt like at that stage as a boy, much different. And 2, as you have many times mentioned, I'm not a fashionable dude to begin with, right? So like my fashion is a black t-shirt, maybe some words on it, probably Feet Will Hunt, some shorts, and that's about it. I just don't. I don't need much as far as clothing is concerned. My wife, luckily, is fashionable and she keeps up with what the girls may be wearing. So that's also a point of contention because of my lack of understanding of the fashion and then her understanding of the fashion. And then I suppose thirdly is that I hold certain things from the boy's point of view as to what she is wearing or wants to wear, right? And it's hard to talk to her about those things because let me tell you what a 13-year-old boy is looking at when you wear this, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because that's just the nature of a 13-year-old boy or a 14-year-old boy, or worse, a older man looking for a very young child, right? I constantly remind my daughter, my number one job is to keep you safe. And
Yeah.
it's not physically safe, it's mentally safe, it's emotionally safe, spiritually safe. That's my job. The word safe is what I want to always provide for you. And that includes sometimes not going with what other people are doing, right?
Absolutely.
Because what the wall that I'm hitting currently is, well, all my friends do this. I'm the only one not doing this. And the easy answer, which I've said many times, is I don't care. I don't care because her friends are not my responsibility. It's her. That's the easy answer, and that's the honest answer. But we know that it's more complex than that.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And that's a complexity I think that fathers of daughters have a hard time with. Or maybe I'm just speaking for myself, but that's that complexity of you don't want to be standing out negatively, you want to be part of the crowd. And these ages are where they're trying to find themselves. They're alone are trying to find who they are, what their voice is, all these different things. I find it a battleground that we've stepped in, just trying to figure out how to talk to her daughter about her image of herself, self-respect, respect for our faith. There is a certain amount of perception that comes off. And to be perfectly honest with you, I also tell her I can take my shirt off in the summer.
Yeah.
Right? And no one will bat an eye. I'm a dude, take my shirt off, it's hot. You can't do that. It's not the same, right?
It's not the same. Yeah.
It's not the same. Now, in an effort to lead by example, I try to differentiate the situation. So what I mean by that is I will sleep without a shirt. I'll walk around my house with my wife and my daughters without a shirt. If I know someone's coming over that is not within our household, or if I'm going out, I will put a shirt on.
Safe plan. That's safe.
Well, but for me to show them that I also respect other people. For
Absolutely.
example, I've said this before. This whole neighborhood, we have girls everywhere. Little girls, my girls' ages, they all come here, they go somewhere else, whatever. I don't want to give the perception of some other father driving by and seeing me shirtless with their girl playing with my little girls here and make someone uncomfortable that way, because I don't think I would like it either.
Yeah.
They may not be doing anything wrong. It is, as we mentioned, socially acceptable that a man can just take off a shirt. We do it in the pool, right? We swim in the pool. But it's my effort to lead by example. Hey, we are no longer just in the comfort of our own home. Someone has entered our home. Now I'm putting a shirt on. It's the effort for me to do that. Although I know it's not exactly the same thing.
Right. And that goes to my point. We are experiencing a conversation that I don't believe that boy dads, boy moms, but specifically boy dads have to have. You don't have to have a conversation about, son, what are you wearing? You're not leaving this house dressed in those basketball shorts and that hood. Whatever the boys are wearing. I don't know. I don't have boys, but what I have seen is little boys running around just freely, shirt off, underwear, and that's it. Little to nothing. I've seen in the airport. But there is a certain level of modesty that women, young ladies, girls should have. And we have to have that conversation. We can't avoid that conversation because, just like you said, there is someone out there that is looking at them in this way that may be sexualizing them. And yeah, there's somebody who could be looking at young boys and sexualizing them. But more often than not, there are people out there who are looking at our young girls as sexual beings. And I say this not to be controversial, but just to be real, just to state the point of that is why we're hyper focused about it. Because over the course of history, a lot of women, a lot of young girls have been hurt by the perception of modesty or immodesty, appropriateness, not being appropriate. And it's a constant conversation that swirls around. And you can go to any form of the spectrum. You could go to be fully covered up and only show your eyes, to no one is going to tell me how to dress and I'm going to flaunt it freely. And for me, I think those are two extremes. I think there is something to say that, yes, I can wear this, I can wear something, and I can still be covered up. I don't have to reveal everything about my body and my anatomy. And there is an appropriateness. There's an appropriate dress for the appropriate activity I'm having, i.e., if we're going to a water park. Okay, wear a swimsuit. That's fine. But what is the appropriateness of that swimsuit, right? Or I'm going here and it's hot. Do my girls have shorts? Of course they have shorts. But when they're older, am I going to say, hey, booty shorts are the way to go for you? Oh my gosh, bro, we were at the rodeo and this woman, she let her daughter, like, these weren't even jeans at this point, right? There was like no jean left to it. They were so ripped. And I was like, why is she even wearing this? Like, how is this even fashion at this point? I was just very curious. And I was like, why are they wearing this to the rodeo? You think rodeo, you think Wranglers and boots and hat. But it just didn't seem appropriate for the situation. And I want my girls to understand there's a level of appropriateness. There's a time and place for everything. If someone tells you, hey, this is a casual dress, then you come casually dressed. If someone says this is semi-formal, or they have that in the military when they're saying, hey, you need to wear your dress blues. This is what we wear. This is the appropriate dress for this function.
Right.
And that is what I want them to understand and be able to recall back to. And I don't want them to just rest on the outward beauty. That is all they have to offer the world. That is not the message I want to tell them. I want to tell them they're beautiful to me because they're mine. God created them. They have a purpose. And I want to cultivate, like we talked about offline, the things that make you more beautiful. Being kind, being patient, being loving, being hospitable. All of these things, developing a personality behind yourself. And not just saying that, oh, I look this way and this is what I have to offer the world. I don't want that messaging for my daughters. And I know in this world that is constantly obsessed with how you look, with social media, it's about how you look and how to be picture perfect all the time. And that's just not reality.
It's the highlight reel, right? You can follow some person and only see the good side and the fun side and that's what our kids are seeing. For us, we have a hard line on social media. Sorry. Like, my daughter has a phone, even that I question probably every day. She hasn't done anything wrong with it. It's been a form of communication. And I think Nate mentioned it too. And we run the same rules as on the phone. It's our phone. It's not hers. She gets to use it. We have full access to it. She knows I can pick it up and look at it. It's not allowed in her room at night. Like, all these different things, right?
Yeah.
But the hard line is social media. Sorry, like, you don't need social media. But the thing is, she's getting some of that feed. Because I know some of her friends have social media.
Yeah.
Right. And so it's those little things that we can't control. And that's probably a fine line too, is she's just being bombarded with all this stuff. Right. And some of it I look at as like second and third order effects of social media, even if she doesn't have it. So some of her friends will have it. They're getting directly influenced by it. And then the second and third order effect influence to her. This is what the current environment, which is social media. You turn on the TV now. It's so interesting. When we grew up, you had commercials. You had to wait the 2 minutes between your shows. You you couldn't just pick up and be like, I want to watch whatever. You can just do that. It was just, if it's on, then you get to watch it, so on and so forth. What I'm getting at is, it almost seemed good as I think about it. I'm like, oh, that's nice, because you don't have commercials, so you don't have a lot of this outside influence coming in. Because you remember, as you were growing up, you saw some commercial. I want that.
I want that.
Right? Yeah. Or you get influenced by it. That's the whole point of the commercial. Yeah. But now you have these services who are turning, well, if you don't want commercials, we're going to re-put commercials in. If you don't want commercials, you have to pay for this premium. You have to pay for this other stuff, right? And that's one thing I have an issue with YouTube, for example. My daughter watches these YouTubers or these things, and I'm constantly looking, what are you watching? What is that? What are they talking about? And from the back, you're like, okay, it's innocent, it's fine, whatever. But then you catch those commercials in between on YouTube, and I'm like, whoa, what are you watching? Oh, no, it's just a commercial about whatever. I'm like, oh. And that's where you start seeing a lot of and I'm telling you, some of these commercials, they're gnarly commercials, dude. And they're getting bombarded by that information. And so that little bit is, I can't tell you how many fashion games my daughter has downloaded on her phone.
Yeah, and now my thing is, now life is a commercial now. Before, commercials were like strategically placed in the midst of like you watching something, or they would send out mailers and you would go through the mailer and then you would try to pick out what you wanted, and you wouldn't necessarily know what everybody else had until you showed up at school. So now, like, life is the commercial. Yeah. So many influencers have these spots, and I think it was like the most wanted gift for Christmas was like a Stanley Cup or something like that.
Everybody knew that. You're right.
And everybody already knew that, but everybody already knew they wanted the Stanley Cup, right? A lot of times, if you were at school, you wouldn't know until you went to school and you saw somebody with something, and then you were like, you ran home, and then you were like, oh, now I have to have it. But now it's no, on demand. We know what we have to have. But I did want to back up a second, and I did want to clarify one thing. And that is, it's going back to saying what you said before, and you constantly said in the podcast, which I'm so grateful that you constantly say, is that we want, even though we don't have boys, we want men to raise good young men, good boys, who interact with our daughters. That has been your constant messaging. And I echo that and completely agree with that. And so even if our daughters were to wear something that may be inappropriate at a time or immodest, it still doesn't give a young man, it still doesn't give a boy the right to treat her with disrespect. And so I also want to give that caveat out there, because if you raise someone with respect, if they're raising solid, decent, moral young boys, young men, they should also have a standard. They should also have a standard of how they treat someone, regardless of what their dress is.
We talk about this all the time in our house. Like, you can't control what people do, you can't control what people are, but you can control your actions.
Yeah.
Right. And so 100%, you can be humble and kind to anybody.
Yeah.
Just like you could be horrible and ugly to anybody. It's a personal choice. And by no means am I saying, and I've yet to say this to my daughter, that's not my plan to ever say that, but I'm not saying, hey, if you wear that, this can happen to you. Like, you're causing this thing to happen.
Correct.
By no means, because that's ridiculous. Now, I do let my daughter know that there is evil out there in the world.
Yes.
And it's not her fault that it's out there. That's one thing I want to make clear, because I want to grow her own mindset of what she values in herself.
Yeah.
Right? With the understanding that there is a certain perception of certain clothing that is worn. We know that. We talked about the differences between men. Just to reiterate, we go to a pool, little boy starts to take off his pants and run around, everybody's laughing.
Yeah.
Right? And obviously the mom's trying to put his pants back on. If the little girl did that, I guarantee, I know for me, I'd be running over there, cover up my little girl.
Or
Right? Like,
people would
it's a
be
very quick
covering
process.
their eyes. And
Right. So, yeah, but by no means am I getting to that where if you were, this could happen. Yeah, that's not what it is at all. We should
oh,
never be there should not be that aspect of of blaming yourself for things that you, especially bad things that you cannot control. We get that. But nurturing her mindset of, hey, what are you trying to say with your posts? Are you trying to exude certain things with for yourself or of yourself with the way you dress? Because we know through study, like people, not just girls, people feel a certain way when they dress a certain way,
yeah,
or they feel a certain way, therefore they dress a certain way. So,
yeah,
so like
yeah,
the clothing that we wear can give off a certain feeling that we have, or we feel a certain way that makes us pick certain things we wear, right? And in fact, unfortunately, that science is used against the consumer or us, our girls, right? Because they know that there's certain psychology that will say, if you wear this, you will feel like this. The silly ones are like the joking ones. What's that movie? Oh man, the Lorax,
oh,
right? So like when they're talking about the air in the bottle,
yeah,
right?
okay.
And they're like, oh yeah, when you open the bottle, this whole thing happens. Because you do this, then this will happen. And we see this a lot in our current environment. We see this a lot, right? The advertising is saying, if you purchase this, if you wear this, if you eat, this is the result.
Yeah,
And we want this result, and that's what we're doing. But what I'm trying to do, and when I know that my wife the same, like what we're trying to do is say, hey, what is it that is making you wear this or that? What is it that you're trying to do? As an example, I see people wear leggings at an airport. And my Neanderthal thought process are, you must be getting off the plane and jumping into the gym right away. Like, that's got to be it. We know that it's not. The leggings are now a fashion. Like, I get that. But early
athleisure,
on,
athleisure wear, yes, sir.
right.
Yeah,
But early on, people are like wearing these things. I'm like, I know you're not getting off the plane and going to the gym. What's the utility of this? So for me, there's no utility in that. So
yeah,
that's
yeah,
why my brain is, I guess you're in a hurry to get to the gym. Wherever you're flying to, you got to get to the gym, right?
yeah.
Utility. So that's where I even tell that to my daughter. I'm like, what is the utility of that right there? So, but I try to steer towards utility. And then when I'm with my wife, because I'm careful to traverse the message that I want to give, then we together, we really dive into, hey, what are we trying to say here? Does this clothes make you feel a certain way? Are you trying to copy someone else? What made you want to wear this thing that we're now having a conversation about?
Yeah. And my thing is it also goes to a sense of belonging, right? If they're
Oh, yeah.
saying, "Oh, because such and such is wearing this," and it's but you belong to us. You you don't belong to that crowd of kids that could move away, that could change. You belong here. You belong in our family. And this is what our family believes, and this is how we want to present ourselves, and these are the values that we believe in. So you belong here. And and my family did a really strong sense of that with growing up, because I was always told you represent this family when you leave this house. So that also rings in my head. Even now, when I go out, you probably know this, I'm a constant overdresser. If there is something that I'm going to try to dress in a way that is over and not under.
Yeah,
And
you can say you're going to dress to impress. It's all good.
yeah, I try to. And a lot of these things are not dressing to impress for these young girls. They're dressing to solicit some kind of response.
Yeah.
And that is also not the messaging.
Yeah.
You don't want to dress to solicit a response. You want to dress in a way that honors you, honors your family, and honors the faith that you represent. And that's what
Right.
I want to tell my girls.
No, and that's 100% agree with you. There is one piece that you mentioned, but I think we tend to forget as older humans is that sense of belonging. Maslow's hierarchy of needs tells us that there's a sense of fitting in and belonging within your tribe, whatever tribe that is. Now, I completely agree with you, right? Like, we have a tribe. Like, you're here with us. This is who we are. And when we go out, we represent. I'm glad you brought that up because that is 100% a conversation that we constantly have. No, I don't care about those people. Like, you represent your sisters, you represent your mother, you represent myself in this household, you represent yourself, and you represent God who made you, right? And so it's easy. That conversation, the actual conversation is easy. It's understanding that she is coming from my oldest. She is coming from a place of a hierarchy of needs that we know humanistically we have, right? It's safety, belonging, like all these different things. And they don't want to differentiate themselves from the pack very often, right? This is the pack I want to roll with. So this is what they're wearing. So that's what I want to do.
Yeah.
And every so often I have to seriously stop, dude, because I went through that. Boy or girl, doesn't matter. I went through that, right? When I was a kid. I went through what is the group I'm with, what are they doing? Because that's what I'm doing, right? Because I need to fit in. It's a real thing. It sucks because you're right. Ideally, we'd be like, no, this is your group right here. We're your group. But we know that between specifically the teen years, they're finding their own way. They're finding their own path, and that path leads them to these other groups of people that they try to fit into. And I think that what you and I have been talking about throughout our episodes is always being able to be that the grounding center for them. I've told my daughter this, and it's probably a little cruel, but I'm like, hey, these groups, they're going to come and go. Like, and especially for us, this is our 8th move. This is their, I don't know. This is my oldest 3rd or 4th move, something like that.
Yeah.
It's always a battle leaving because my friends, but then now we're here. Now they got new friends. And so these friend groups, especially for us, like, they're going to change. They're going to change. And you have to keep yourself true because that's the only thing you can control. The groups are going to change, and who you want to fit into is going to change. You have to just fit into you and represent your family.
And that's what I really want to get to, because I think, like you said, when you're a kid, you go through that and you think, and I did that a lot. I did a lot of kind of trying to fit in and then suppressing my real hobbies just because they just weren't on par with what everybody else was doing. I really stayed in the realm of books and escapism and comic books for much longer than my other classmates did. And they were off and watching different kind of movies and this, that, and the other. And I'm still like hyper focused in high fantasy, Lord of the Rings and Chronicles of Narnia and A Wrinkle in Time and all these other things. And they've moved past that. But I suppressed that so that I could also catapult in what they liked in some kind of like dumb comedies and other things that really didn't pique my interest. But then as I grew and mature, I was like, no, this is what I really like. And there is some substance to the things that I really like. And these things also have deeper meanings. And that is why they resonate with me. And even with the way I dress, now that I could say that was probably one thing that I did not give into a lot of popular culture things. Like, I wasn't the guy I never sagged my jeans. I always took my stuff to the dry cleaners. I always liked to look a certain way. And maybe that is probably why I have a hard line with my girls, because I'm like, I always wanted to look like a gentleman. I did not want to look out of place. And probably that's why I enjoyed when we had to do the dress blues in the military. I enjoyed those days. I enjoyed those Fridays, man. Going when we had to dress up I like that. So that wasn't hard for me. And so I also want to give that to my girls. And look your best. Don't look the way you think other people want you to look outside of this house.
Yeah, again, it's just that battle, man. And I'm sure other girl dads are feeling that as they go into those teen years. I know I'm starting to feel that and traverse through that. So we may come back to this topic later, and I have a whole different set of problems or hurdles to go through. But the learning process is really important. And also understanding that we are in that learning process, right?
Right.
You're still within that 8-year and under. I'm getting into this. We have other folks that we're going to have on that have experience going through this section of life, this phase of life that I can't wait to ask questions about, because the whole point of our podcast and our platform is to be able to have those conversations, to take some of that information, and hopefully, as you mentioned before, beat those statistics, right? Learn faster, be better faster, and hopefully influence our daughters in our way, in our dad way, faster than they would if we weren't constantly learning and growing. Thanks for the conversation today. For everybody out there, send us what your thoughts are. What are you guys going through? And we'd love to hear your thoughts. So you can send those to conversations@daughterpodcast.com. You can also hit us up directly on social media. We're both on Instagram. You can go to www.daughterpodcast.com and find all of the stuff on the podcast there, including our handles and our social media presence. I can't wait to do a Q&A episode on here about the information or questions that we're getting in, and comments. So it's not just questions, right? You guys can ask us questions. We're not the pros, but we can comment on some of these things, suggestions for topics that we may not be covering yet. And we're getting a lot of good feedback on that, on your side and on my side. So if you guys want, please send those our way. In the meantime, we'll continue the battle of growing as girl dads. Please join us in all the formats. Look us up on YouTube. Get on here and listen, and then send us your thought. Landon, you got anything else for us?
I actually do, man. People have been noticing I've been putting books in the background. And so this book, for this particular conversation, I wanted to put in. It's one of my favorite books to read to my daughters. It's called Mufaro's Beautiful Daughters. It's by John Steptoe. It's African folklore, and it's dealing with these two daughters and their dad. And I love this book because the dad is the one that drives home how beautiful his daughters are. And I think it's perfect for this conversation because the beauty comes from the dads assigning the beauty to the daughters. Now, they have their own kind of conflict, and it goes through this beautiful tale, but the whole time, the dad is adding value to the daughters. So if you're looking for a book to share with your girls, and you want to add value and tell them that they're beautiful and they're loved, this is a perfect book to give to them. This is a perfect book to read to them. So I'll continue to have these book recommendations for all the girl dads about what books you can be reading to your daughters. But this is perfect because the beauty that he's talking about is an inward beauty as well as an outward beauty. He believes they're beautiful, but it's an inward beauty that is not cliche. And so I just wanted to share that because people were asking me about that. They were like, man, you have the different books in the background, you never talk about them. So this is one
awesome. Of them. I expect a copy here soon.
I'll send it to you. Amazon, we'll get it to you real quick.
Yeah, Oscar here at the Daughter Podcast. Landon on the other side. We'll look forward to the next one with you all.